And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. It's show number 29. It's a Christmas show. We're just a couple days out before Christmas. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the show. Very excited today to have on my brother-in-law, Ron Bentley, as our guest. He is a police officer. He is a husband, a father, a leader in his community, and a baseball coach in his high school area there. He'll be coming up on the next segment. Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. We are on the following stations. Country 107.7 WDLC, 106.9 WYNY, Wall Radio on 94.1, 94.9, 105.7, 106.1, 1340 AM and 101.5 HD2, and on Sundays, Pocono 96.7 on the FM. We're excited about this show, and I am in the studio with my handy-dandy partner here and producer of the show, Gavin Burt. Gavin, we're a couple days out from Christmas. What is the thing that you look forward to the most about the Christmas holiday?
Believe it or not, 25 years ago, I looked forward to opening presents and so forth, and that's still fun. But what I look forward to the most is Christmas Eve, because it's always quiet. We used to go to this party that I could never stand for years, and but now I'll come home. We'll either watch a movie or I'll just sit back. I sound like John D. Rockefeller when I say this, and I'll just catch up on my newspaper reading. And I like quiet Christmas Eves, and that's what I enjoy the most about the holidays, just a quiet evening, not much going on,
Do you put a little Christmas music on in the background, a little fire?
We actually do have a wood stove, so we have a fire burning. But usually it's not so much Christmas music in the background. My parents might be watching something, and if my way of spending time with them is if I don't want to watch what they're watching, I'll just kind of sit there and read my newspaper, and the cats will curl up with me. So that's a quiet evening at the Burt household.
Very nice. Well, I wish you and your family, Gavin, the best. And you've been a gift here for me, taking care of the program like you do.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, let's get right to it. Today's concept is called lollipop leadership. And no, we're not talking about candy, but I do want to share a great story with you. We've been talking leadership on this show now for over a half a year. And there are many of us out there that think about leadership that it has to be the smartest person in the room, or some fancy-dancy, a heavy hitter, some grandiose idea, or something like that. Not exactly. You can have an impact and show leadership in many ways, and especially in small ways, without being a heavy hitter, without being the CEO of the company or the superintendent of the school or the chief of police. This is a story told by Drew Dudley. Drew is the founder of Day One Leadership out of Canada. Drew was the director of leadership at a small university in Canada years ago, and he tells this story. You could find it on TED Talks, and type up lollipop leadership. So there was a young lady. It was on the eve of her attending school. She's in the hotel the night before with her parents, and she is extremely nervous. She's scared, and she doesn't believe she can do it. She tells her parents, I don't want to go. I just can't do it. They plead with her. They push her. They say, let's just go tomorrow. Let's get through tomorrow. If at the end of the day you say you can't do it, we'll let you back out. But I want you to get through tomorrow. She reluctantly agrees. They go to registration. They're online. Again, she is just so uptight. She's so scared. She could hardly breathe. Out comes Drew Dudley. He's wearing a crazy outfit. He's got a crazy hat on. That's one of his signature things, is wearing these hats. And he's giving out lollipops, promoting things in the college and promoting an organization in the college. And he hands a lollipop to the gentleman next to this young lady. And he says to him, I think you should give this lollipop to this beautiful young lady standing next to you. And the guy gets all red, she gets all red, and he kind of very scared and like extends his arm and hands her the lollipop, very afraid to do so. Drew then turns to the young lady's parents and says, "Aha! You or your daughter on the first day here took candy from a stranger. What have you taught this young lady? What is going on here? One day away from you, and or not even away from you, and she's already taking candy from strangers." Well, the whole room laughs. The girl laughs. The parents are hysterical laughing, and that broke that tension for that young lady. That released her nervousness. The smile broke everything. And in that moment, she began to feel comfortable, and she began to feel like she belonged there. Well, fast forward the story. The young lady stayed in the school. She did very well. And 4 years after that occurrence, Drew Dudley was leaving the college. It was wrapping up the semester. She was getting close to graduating. And she went into his office and said, "I need to tell you a story." And she tells him the story. He doesn't even recall the day. He doesn't even remember the incident happening. Yet she told him what an impact he had on her in that moment. She also told him that she was still dating the young man that handed her the lollipop. But she wanted to thank him for going out of his way to make her feel comfortable, to make her feel accepted, to make her smile, and she wound up staying there. Fast forward a year and a half later from that, Drew Dudley moved to Toronto and again started the founder of Day One Leadership company. He gets an invitation to their wedding in the mail. How about that? What a small act of kindness, a small gesture on his part, but it changed this whole young lady's environment and her feeling towards being there at the college. So that's my point today. That's our concept today here on the eve of Christmas. Giving of yourselves to others, being kind to others, and making a positive impact on them, even if it is just with a smile. You don't have to be the CEO to be a leader. I had my 9-year-old daughter on the program, 11-year-old, earlier in the year, Claire Murad, and we talked about leadership with her. And you could start doing those things at that young age. As educators, as teachers, as people who work in the school, whatever your role is in the school, we have a great opportunity to do that so much because of all the young people we're around. Police officers certainly have an opportunity to show lollipop leadership, and that was one of the reasons I told that story today, because I am having Ron Bentley on the show, a police officer in New Canaan, Connecticut, and my brother-in-law. He'll be coming up very soon. And Ron has showed me and our family him do this in multiple facets in his role. Ron has worked in downtown New Canaan and been the officer walking the beat in and out of the shops, greeting the customers and working with the retail people in those shops. Ron has also been the school resource officer, working in the high school with the students at New Canaan High School, again, developing those relationships and showing kindness and compassion towards the students. Even I saw this firsthand when Ron gave my son the New Canaan police patch. And my son has it proudly displaying in his room, and he looks at Ron very much so in admiration of him for being a police officer. The great Maya Angelou once said, "People will forget what you said. They will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel." And what a better example than that in that story told by Drew Dudley. So that's today's opening concept here on the eve of Christmas. Get after it. Be kind to people. And regardless of your role, you don't have to be the president to be a leader. You can, whatever your role is, you can show leadership just in your kindness towards others. We're going to get with our guest here coming up in the next segment, Ron Bentley, my brother-in-law, and a New Canaan police officer. That's coming up next here on Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the program. This is Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. It's show number 29. I am your host, Andrew Marotta, and we are excited to be on the eve of Christmas. Thanks for tuning in this morning, wherever you are in your role. And I would like to welcome in today's guest, a very special person to me, very close. He is my brother-in-law, Ron Bentley. Ron, good morning and welcome to the program.
Morning, Andrew, and thanks for having me.
Looking forward to seeing you in just a couple days for Christmas. Again, Ron is a New Canaan police officer. He's a leader in his community in several different ways. And Ron, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the program.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad you invited me, and I'm looking forward to it.
I know you and your wife and your children, Lucy and Liam, will be listening. They were some of the first fans of the show, I believe.
Yeah, that they were. Absolutely.
Yeah, especially Kelly, always back in the show. So, Ron, let's get right to it. You've been a police officer, for many years now. What made you want to get in the role of becoming a police officer?
Well, I had a lot of positive interaction with police growing up. Small community. My mom actually worked on a food truck in town, and a lot of times she'd go there early in the morning, and I'd had to go with her. She couldn't get me to school, so the next best option was to have a police officer bring me. So I was afforded that opportunity to ride in a police car at a very young age and have real positive interaction with the police. And that was the real reason why I wanted to be a police officer.
And that relates to our opening segment. I know you had an opportunity to listen to that. So do you remember, Ron, was there any specific incidents where one of the officers said something or did something that really kind of keyed that feeling to you as a young man?
No, I just remember being in the car with the police officer and him being so nice and just showing me the radio and the lights and all the tools that you get to use and play with. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And the ironic thing is, I actually grew up in a firehouse with my uncle, who was a fireman for over 30 years. But I just thought the police side was really cool, and they were just so nice. And that was my interaction with them, just very positive. Great.
And now that you've been doing it, how many years are you on the job, Ron?
13.
13 years. So now that you've been doing it, you've seen a lot of the sides of the job. It's not always nice. A pipe bomb just went off in New York City last week. We're actually just upon the anniversary of the Newtown shootings. These are some very serious, violent incidents that occur. Ron, I have difficult situations at school as a principal, but I don't ever feel like I'm going to be shot or killed. Is that something you've been doing this 13 years now? Is that something that you think about every day that you put your uniform on?
For me personally, I think each officer's, their own person. But for me personally, when I'm putting on my uniform and my ballistic vest in my locker room, I always kiss my kids' pictures in my locker, and then once I leave the locker room, that's it. I don't think about it. Prior to, as I said, I do. I think you have to. I think it also helps you do your job better. You're relying on your training. But yeah, I do think about it. But like I said, once I leave the locker room, it kind of goes away, and I'm ready to do my job. I took that oath to protect and serve.
Ron, is that an option to wear the vest? Is that something that you could choose to do, or is that a rule in the department?
It's mandated by our department that we do wear the vest. There are exceptions to that. Me personally, I've always worn my vest, even when I'm doing extra duty jobs on the side. I just feel that I have a better shot with it on if I don't than I don't. So
sure.
I used to wear it.
Sure. Ron, I mentioned in the opening segment some of the jobs that you've had while working in New Canaan. You've been the school resource officer. You've been the person to be downtown, walking on the streets. How do you display leadership in those different roles on the job, Ron?
Well, I think that, one being the SRO, it's a little bit different than being the community officer downtown. One, obviously with the SRO, you're dealing with a lot of youth and children, and they have a whole host of different issues that you kind of deal with. Being downtown as a community officer, you're dealing with a lot of adults and what have you. So I think they're two different things. But I just try to be very positive with people instead of being negative. Saying hi to someone versus not saying anything and just walking right by them. Trying to get to know people. I try to get to know at least one or two people a day in the downtown area. Being that I'm not in school anymore, so it's a little more difficult, but I am coaching still. I just try to be positive with people because in policing, a lot of times we only see the negative, or they only experience the negative. And I try to be positive with as many people as I can in town. That's my role as a community officer is to be positive and try to build a stronger, foster a better relationship with people.
And Ron, is that something that the department talks about as an expectation on the job? I mean, I know, just like teaching in education, there's a union job. Like, that's not in the contract to be nice to people. I went through the 7 habits of highly successful training with several of the police officers here in Port Jervis. Is that something that they talk about as an expectation of the job?
No, I mean, your expectation is that you're going to be professional, you're going to be kind, you're not going to be abrasive. There are expectations, but there's nothing in writing that says you have to be, a nice officer. You're out there to do your job. But for me personally, that's the expectation I set for myself. I mean, I am a community officer. I am trying to bring a positive light to law enforcement. In light of some of the situations around the country, I'm trying to be more. We as a department are trying to be more positive in our community.
Yeah. Ron, you're in New Canaan, Connecticut. That's an affluent town, an affluent city. Do you sometimes get from, whether it's teenagers or young people, do you get a sense of entitlement or a sense of, if you have to give a ticket or you have to reprimand somebody that they're going to get out of it, or their daddy's going to get them out of it because they're a millionaire, something like that? Does that happen on your job?
I personally have not experienced it in my time. I know that other officers in town have experienced that. They deal with it how they deal with it. But me personally, I haven't really experienced that. Maybe that's just because I've had so many different roles in my department, from the SRO to coaching varsity baseball, to being a community officer. I know quite a few people in town that, I make that my goal to try to, like I said, to meet as many people as I can on a regular basis. So I personally have not experienced that. Okay.
Well, that certainly could be a negative. Ron, what are some of the things that you really enjoy about the job? Some of the great things about being a police officer?
Well, again, I like talking with people. I like talking to people. I like getting to know people. One of the things I do is I do coffee with a cop on a monthly basis, and it gives the citizens in town an opportunity to come down and meet officers and talk with officers about whatever issues they have, from a traffic light to why did you write this ticket to whatever they want to talk about. It's just, I'm afforded an opportunity being in the position I am to do that, to meet people, but then also be a police officer and get to play with all these really cool tools, so to say.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put that, but I do get to play with a lot of really cool things and do a lot of cool training. So,
and I know you've put some of those trainings into practice. Ron, several years ago, you had a very traumatic experience that wound up becoming a celebration of you and your actions. Can you tell us the story about you getting that call that there was a baby who was not breathing, and can you tell us that story?
Sure. Still get a little emotional about it.
You saved a baby's life, Ron. I mean, I can't imagine, and hopefully the family will listen to this program. But it's really something to celebrate today. You think about what it could have been.
Yeah, I like to say I was in the right place at the right time. I was doing enforcement on a road in town, and a call came in my sector that there was an unresponsive 4-month-old baby. So I was there within probably 20 to 30 seconds. And when I arrived, Mark, the 6-month-old baby, was purple and not breathing. I was completely unresponsive. And the father was holding them, looking at me as I got through the door. So I took Mark in my arms, and I literally cradled him like a football in my left arm, and I started taking his clothes off and started CPR. And I was able to revive him and get him breathing. He actually threw up all over my uniform and then started crying, which was a blessing. I wasn't happy about the uniform, but he started crying, and that is a positive sign right there. It means he took a big, deep breath and started breathing. He was still unconscious, but started breathing. And then the reason it's tough for me is that my son at the time was 4 months old, and so Mark was 6 months old. So, I just kept thinking that what if this family is not able to, have this child in their life anymore? And it was very emotional. And it's just, I'm glad things worked out the way they do. And I see his family at least once a year, and he's the big little boy. I actually keep a picture of him in my right shirt pocket. To remind me, why I do this job.
Wow.
And it's always there, and he's always close to me. So I like to think that Mark's also kept me safe over the years.
Yeah.
So,
Ron, last week's show was about being ready for the moment that comes to you, whatever your job is, about all the training, all the work you do, like putting in deposits, and then when the moment comes, whatever that moment is, it's like a big withdrawal. Did your experiences as an officer, did your training in that moment all come to you? I mean, what a traumatic thing. You walk in, the father's holding the baby, he's purple. Most people are going to freeze.
Yeah, I had been in some pretty tough situations prior, and, I've been with a lot of adults, and unfortunately they haven't made it. And then it's a whole different story when it comes to children. And you hope and pray that when you're in a situation like this, that your training and all that stuff kicks in and you're able to do it. And I kind of relate it like this. Andrew, you played sports your whole life. You played collegiately as well. When you get in that zone, when you're playing basketball and you get in that zone, right, and it's just you in the basket and you're playing awesome. Well, when I came in through that door, it was kind of like I was in a zone, and my training just kicked in and took over. And I have to thank the department and the state of Connecticut for the training that they provide us, because if we don't have that training, who knows what would happen. So that's pretty much it. Your training kicks in, and you take control of the situation, and in that case, it worked out.
Well, and I know your department celebrated that. It was on 1010 Wins News in New York City, and what a great experience for that family and for you. Traumatic, yet you look what you did, and that slogan of to protect and serve, like just the fact that you had that experience to do that is phenomenal. Ron, we do have to take a break right now. You're in the zone here on Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. We will be right back with today's guest, Ron Bentley. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone, to the program. This is Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. It is show number 29, a Christmas show, and what better guest to have on during Christmas than one of my closest family members. He is my brother-in-law, Ron Bentley. We've become quite close over the years, and he's been very good to me and my family. He is a godfather to the Tess, and he is a fantastic person. Ron, you're doing a great job on the program today. In the last segment, you told that very emotional story about saving that baby. Another story I wanted to ask you about, a couple years ago, you pulled over a teenager for driving too fast. And not only were they driving too fast, it was an icy kind of night. Now, we've all had that experience getting pulled over, and 9 out of 10 times you get a ticket and the cop sends you on your way. But this story turned out a little bit differently, didn't it, Ron?
It did. It did. I was doing some traffic enforcement on a road that is one of our speed locations in town, and I believe the speed was 25. And this young female was I believe, going about between 55 and 60 miles an hour, moving right along there. And the reason, I pulled her over. Where I initially had the point of contact with her with the speed, to the point of where I pulled her over, it took me a good distance to get to her because she was going so fast. And so when I pulled her over, I walked into the car, and the first thing that said out of my mouth was, "Why so fast?" She said, "I'm coming home from school," or whatever she was doing, younger female. And I simply said, "Okay, I need your license, registration, insurance." And I happened to notice on her license that she lived on the road we were actually on, and she was 2 or 3 houses down on the right-hand side. So I came back to her car, and I said, "Are your parents home?" And she said, "I believe my mom is." I said, "Well, why don't you pull in your driveway and then call her from your driver and tell the police officers in your driveway you want to speak with her." And she did that. She was crying. The mom came out, and I said, "Mom, first I'd like to speak with you. Then you can speak with your daughter." So I spoke to the mom, and I just simply said, "Mom, here's the deal. Your daughter was going 55 miles an hour in opposed to 25. It's icy out here. She's going to die if she continues to drive like this," basically. I was very blunt. I said, she's an inexperienced driver, and, what I'm going to do, sir, I'm not going to give her a ticket because I believe that you are better to handle this than I would. It's very easy to write a ticket. I can write the ticket, call it a day, and thanks for coming out. But I think this is a more impactful way to kind of do it, and that's what I explained to the mother. And she was, and then we went back and spoke to her about it, and I told her I wasn't giving her a ticket. However, her mother would take care of it. And I believe her mother took her license away from her for a couple months, and whatever she did, she did. But I do know that fact. I just thought it was a better way to handle it than just writing a ticket. Like I said, it's very easy to write a ticket with someone like that and speed and call it a day. But for me, it's a teachable moment for the parent and everyone involved. So I handled it that way instead.
And we talked about making a positive impact on people and leadership, and you never know who you're talking to. So the funny part of that story that you and I both found out afterwards is that was my cousin's kid.
Yes, it was.
And that got back from my cousin to my aunt to my mom to me, boom, boom, and they made the connection of you and I being a brother-in-law. So you didn't even know who that was, yet you went out of your way, again, not to just hammer them with the money, but more so to make that impact. And you talked about life and death with her. And my aunt and uncle and my cousin's family couldn't have been more impressed with you because of your actions in that moment. And I think that was a great display of leadership and teaching on your part.
Yeah, I had no idea she was a family member of yours. I really didn't. And that's the ironic thing about the whole thing. So.
Yeah. And they were extremely impressed with you and grateful. Again, not because of the money, a couple $100 here and that ticket goes away, but it was the impact that you had on that family, and that's a great story.
Yeah.
Ron, let's shift gears a little bit. You mentioned collegiate athletics before. You played Division II baseball at University of New Haven. Tell me about your experience playing baseball there, and what lessons have you taken from New Haven to now coaching as part of the New Canaan coaching team staff at the high school?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing baseball throughout my life. High school, I was a very good baseball player, and I went off to college to play. And I was in for a rude awakening because I wasn't prepared enough to play as a freshman. I thought I was. Things kind of came very easy for me with baseball. And when I went to college, I thought it was going to be extremely easy as well, and I would just step right in and hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball like it was nothing. Well, I couldn't even touch the ball when I got there, and I found out really quickly that I had to work even harder than I did in high school baseball to even try to compete at this level. The work ethic, the attention to detail, the after hours work that you would put in, and I realized that very quickly that those are the things that made me successful. Those are the ingredients that would make me successful in baseball. And once I started doing that, I had an absolute blast playing baseball. I got to travel up and down the East Coast, played in various locations. It was just a lot of fun. For me, coaching, I've taken a lot of that discipline, teamwork, hustle, work ethic, and brought it back to the high school level. And we had a lot of success, winning state title, FCI title, whatever we did after so many years. Those are the tools that I brought back from that collegiate level.
And now you're teaching not only those high school kids, but my children and your children throwing that ball in the backyard, playing baseball with them. Ron, you also met your beautiful wife, Kelly, at UNH. So after baseball and after meeting your wife, Kelly, certainly not in that order, what was the best thing about your experience at the college itself?
I would say it's it's a smaller school. So at the time, we were such a close community, and I mean that. You hung out together, you stayed together, and the baseball players and pretty much the athletes all stayed together, and it was just a very close-knit community. And I think that was a great experience for me, not going to such a large school, but a smaller school, which was fun.
Yeah, I remember that graduation ceremony, too, in the pouring rain.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I hope UNH is listening and they bought some tents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ron, you mentioned your children, and I know they're tuning in. So beautiful, and you have a beautiful family. You mentioned kissing their pictures before you go out. Part of being a first responder is that you guys run to the danger where everyone else is running away. Do you do the job differently now that you had children versus before you did?
Well, I will say this: my wife and my kids are my life. They are in my world, and I never ever want to. I never want anything bad to happen to me. I think, like I said before, I think about it in the locker room. You think about it, and then when I leave the locker room, it's done. I've been in some pretty tough situations, and you don't really think about it at the moment, and then afterwards you think about it. I don't think I do the job differently. I just think I'm smarter at the job. I work smarter. I do things in a way that I make sure I keep myself safe and my brother and sister officers safe, if we're in a bad situation.
Yeah. Talking about your family, I know you're a movie buff, Ron, and I think of that line. It's from Rocky III, when he's really being successful, and his wife, they're in a big argument, and Rocky says, he's afraid because he's afraid to lose what he got. And we're both so fortunate to have such great families. Well, you keep working smart out there, and you be safe. Ron, it's the Christmas time. It's Christmas season. Does your department do any outreach or service to the community in terms of helping people during the Christmas season? Yeah,
one of the things we do is we provide full meals to multiple families in town. Donated by our PBA, our Police Benevolent Association, which is a nice thing. We usually go down to the soup kitchens and serve meals to the less fortunate, and we try to help out as much as we can around the town, from wreaths and Christmas trees to whatever or however we can help the community.
Awesome. Ron, you again been listening to the show, and there's a focus on leadership. So this is a question, people talk about the privacy of the world and things like that. If you had a camera crew with you for a week, Ron, that's with you the whole time, all day, even when you're off duty. I don't want to say 24 hours a day, but most of the, from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night. And then they showed that video. What would you want people to say about you and the way you do your job? What would be some of the descriptions that they would say, Officer Bentley, after watching this video, and then fill in the blank?
I don't know if I'd have a camera crew following, but I'll go with it. I think that one of the things they would see is that, behind the uniform, we are real people. We have families, we have wives, we have children, we have friends, dogs.
You got dogs, all right.
Oh, man, I'll tell you, do I. And they would see that I love my wife and my kids, and I'm a dedicated father to them. I love my job, and I love my friends, and my family. They would see that being a police officer is challenging, but it also has its rewards. So I think that's pretty much it.
And Ron, I know those values about you because I get to see that, and you are filled with passion. And my friend Jared Kamar asked that question a couple of weeks ago on the program with his philosophy of hand fight life, that you live your life and with your family and your job and display your core values, and you certainly do that. So, Ron, we are up with the rapid fire portion of the program. This is a fan favorite, and
nice.
Are you ready? You tuned in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Last book you read?
Your book, The Principal.
Excellent answer. Last movie you watched? I know you're a movie buff. Last movie you watched?
The Great Wall with Matt Damon. I thought it was a great movie. It's my type of movie.
Okay, The Great Wall. I'm going to put it on my list. The best police movie you've ever seen?
I would say there's a couple. End of Watch is realistic, and then Training Day, obviously, ends up.
Oof.
Very good cop movie, but
yes.
Not in terms of a positive way.
Yeah. Hardest thing you've ever had to do on the job?
CPR on my cousin.
Oof. Best thing about being a police officer?
The best thing about being a police officer, I get to play with some of the coolest toys, like I said, and drive some of the coolest cars, and I get to have an impact on people's lives on a daily basis, whether it be hopefully positive, but sometimes it's negative. But, yeah.
Fill in the blank. If you were chief, you would?
I would communicate better with his officers, and I would show them the support that they deserve.
A short-term goal, 1 to 3 months.
Continue to have a positive impact on the community impact officer in the downtown business district.
Long-term goal, 3 to 5 years.
Begin to prepare for my next chapter in life with my wife, which is a business.
Excellent. Excellent. Rudolph or Frosty?
Oh, Rudolph, because he's a leader.
He's not afraid. He can show the way.
He's not afraid. He gets right in there,
Favorite thing about the Christmas holiday?
Seeing the excitement in my kids' eyes when they realize that Santa did come.
Awesome. Awesome. One word to describe your wife, Kelly.
Oh, boy. I don't know if one word can describe her, but she is probably the most amazing, loving, caring, strong woman that I've ever known, besides my late grandmother and my mother.
Nice. That was about 6 or 7 words, but we'll go with amazing.
All right.
The 3 most important characteristics of a leader.
I believe they have to have integrity. They need to be disciplined, and they should have loyalty.
Great answer. Ron, we got to take a commercial break. Gavin's laughing with your phone buzzing in the background. But we'll be right back on Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving with today's guest, Ron Bentley. Welcome back, everyone, to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. This is Andrew Marotta. It's been a great show with today's guest, Officer Ron Bentley. We'll be right back with Officer Bentley. A quick recap of today's show. Number one, I do want to wish everyone a happy holiday, a Merry Christmas. It's a great time of the year to be with family and friends and share some laughs and share some stories. So I thank you for tuning in today, and again, wish you a great holiday. A quick recap, we talked about lollipop leadership in the beginning of the program. Told the story about Drew Dudley, who's the founder of Day One Leadership, who had an interaction with a young woman who was petrified on registration day in college. And he, with one simple act of handing the person next to her a lollipop, telling a joke, introducing them, put her at ease, and wound up breaking that tension for her because he went out of his way to be kind, show compassion, be humorous. And the point is, anyone could be a leader by showing those characteristics and being kind to one another. You don't have to be a big-time CEO or a president or a superintendent or a chief to display leadership by showing kindness and compassion to others. You can find that YouTube clip on TED Talks. Type in Lollipop Leadership, and there it is. That being said, you can contact the show at andrew@neversinkmediagroup.com, at Andrew Marotta 21, or you could go to my website, andrewmarotta.com. The past shows are there. You could contact me through that way, and you can also get a preview and a copy of my book, The Principle, Surviving and Thriving, all on that website. This is the write-in portion of the show. I'd like to welcome Ron back into the program. And since when he was young, he wanted to become a police officer. Ron, today's question is, what advice would you give to a high schooler who may want to go into law enforcement?
It's a great question. I would tell them that it is one of the greatest and most honorable professions that you can be a part of. When you want to become a police officer, it requires dedication and a great amount of sacrifice for both you and your family, especially your family. At times, it's very hard in your family. So you have to make sure that you're willing to do that, and your family, talk to your family, make sure that they're willing to do it with you and be a part of that whole journey. Because when you get through that whole part, it's an amazing, amazing ride. I would say also look at all your options in law enforcement, not just being a police officer, but, whatever the other options you want to go into, FBI, CIA, whatever government options are out there. So,
and Ron, you went the college route. You can get a 2-year degree. And what about time in the military? Could you then go into a police officer if you went into the military first?
You can. Yeah, we have quite a few guys that you need to have either at least 2 years military, I believe, and then a 4-year degree, bachelor's degree, and whatever. But yeah, military. We have quite a few military guys that have served their country honorably, and now are either still active but a police officer, or they are done serving, and now they are full-time police officers. So yeah.
Okay. Ron, we have a second question, and we have about 2 minutes left, and this isn't a 2-minute question, but public shootings in the United States have become more common than not, unfortunately, and we're 5 years ago from the Newtown shooting. There was a shooting in Las Vegas with that weapon that the guy illegally, made an automatic weapon there. Gun control in this country, Ron, is a hot topic. People are very passionate on both sides. What are your thoughts about getting some better gun control and a better way to just be careful about these guns getting into people's hands? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on this could be an entire show on a topic on gun control. My feeling is I think we do need gun control in this country. I think there are laws out there that do prevent a lot of this stuff from happening. But some of these shootings, there's really no way to prevent them because they're law-abiding citizens that have a constitutional right to bear arms. There are ways to try to limit them from getting that with background checks and what have you, and try to take them away from them. But I don't know. It's a tough thing, and I don't know if it will ever stop. And that's the unfortunate thing in this country. It just seems like we're dealing with one every other month here, or every other week, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible thing. And the first time in my career, my wife, thinks that I should probably get an off-duty gun. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
And
We've reduced in our school. We've reduced the amount of fire drills we've had, and have more lockdown drills now. And that's that was a change coming down from the state due to what's happening.
Yeah, my daughter had one, and we had a discussion with her about it. My daughter's 7, and she went through her lockdown drill, and she's curious about it as to why they're doing that. And you do more of those now than you actually do the fire drills because it's just our society. It's terrible, but it's the way our society is.
Well, Ron, we are at the end of the show. Again, a Merry Christmas to you and your family. You did a great job on the program, and in my opinion, you are the epitome of what a police officer can and should be by your leadership and again, what you talked about, your connections with the community. So keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for having me, and Merry Christmas to you, and I'll see you very shortly here, and we'll have a nice little Christmas dinner together.
That's right. A couple of days, you and I always get the seat on the end to make sure we can serve and to keep our stature up high in the competition to be number one. You certainly make it hard. Yeah. Ron, we end every program with a quote, and this quote is dedicated to you and all of our first responders out there. I know many of them got to work on Christmas, so the quote is from former President Ronald Reagan, and it reads, "Evil is powerless if the good are unafraid." Again, evil is powerless if the good are unafraid. We had one of the best on today, and Ron Bentley. Next week's guest, he's my best friend. I've known him my whole life, Dr. Francis Sellis. He is from New York City, Staten Island, and he is now a cardiologist out in Oregon, serving the people on the West Coast in the field of cardiology. Again, Dr. Francis Sellis is our guest next week. It'll be a New Year's show as we approach New Year's Eve. That is all, everyone. Go out and change the world for the better. Signing off here on Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving.